David Drogba, you were one of the first guests on the CEO's Guide to Marketing, so thank you for that. And you're the first guest and the first CEO to be on the show twice. So thank you for indulging me, not just once, but 2 times.
Well, I'll try not to echo everything from the first one.
First of all, I join the chorus of our community in offering a round of applause and gratitude for the contributions, the success, and really all the things that I think, as somebody who thinks about marketing holistically, because I have that luxury, the differences you made. And I use differences purposefully and in plural. And so enough nice stuff. One of the things that I read that you've said, and you'll tell me if it was misquoted, is you've talked about in this moment of transition, right? You've talked about the learning curve that came when you first started the job here at Accenture as chief executive. And you've talked about that role of CEO as a privilege, of course, but also exhausting. I'm wondering if you can break down for our audience some of what the learning curve was and what the most exhausting parts were.
Well, there's a lot to unpack in that one, but we'll start by saying, it was a privilege, and it is always a privilege, to be given any responsibility of scale, or even small scale, where you are influencing the direction and the potentials of a company. And by company, I mean people and clients. I take that very seriously and personally. And with that comes that sort of pressure and all that. But I did take the job as well. I think I said it when I took it. And I'm very appreciative of the successes I'd had until that point. I was excited to be excited and intimidated again, because for the successes of Droga 5, and I was very comfortable in my skin.
Do you think if we had met earlier, it would have been Droga 2, just you and me?
Well, it's named after a laundry tag on my mother's, and I was the 5th son. Probably not.
Okay.
But unless I find out somehow that you were an adopted member of my family, or an unknown.
By the way, I am petitioning to be.
There you go. Well, just come after me, okay, so then I don't have to change my ranking, because I don't want to have to suddenly migrate to 6. But I was, as I said, I hadn't been intimidated for 20 years. Doesn't mean I wasn't, everything's easy, or it was just came to me and all that sort of stuff. I mean, there were things really mattered, and there's lots of pressure, but just put myself into a space that I thought I needed to learn again brings a lot of what my belief system is and values to that, but also put myself in a huge canvas with exceptionally bright people that touches so many different industries than what I had. That was also a lot of pressure. And I think the exhausting part is the opportunity is so vast, which is another reason I took it, to not live up to the opportunity and move at the pace that the rest of my career has always moved at a very fast pace. And I was very fortunate for that, and it took me around the world, and that part of my behavior I didn't want to lose. I see what the opportunity was, realize, that's going to take great people, vision, strategy, clarity, but the scale is so much bigger. Could I move at the same pace for us to get there?
And what'd you find?
I found you can't, well, in some levels you can move at that pace, about the first year it's about, collecting and protecting the best people. Can I protect the great people we have in, or can I collect some excellence from outside? But the difference was that how large we are, the assumptions that everybody understands what we're doing and where we're going is on board at the same time. That doesn't happen. That was not possible to happen at that scale. So I really had to make sure that it seeps down. And also, again, Interactive, which we had turned into song, is but one part of broader Accenture. So we are a sibling in this family. We couldn't be it didn't stop or start at me. We're a contributing member of Accenture, and a bigger one now than it's ever been. But also we relied on them. We were very fortunate to be on their shoulders as well.
Yeah.
So as I said, there was sort of the understanding that, yes, I'm the CEO, but I'm one of 4 CEOs of the service groups. Again, you know what I mean? So that was new for me. And also because I was also included on the broader leadership team of Julia's team, Exco. I'm expected to, and I wanted to contribute about the broader company strategy. Well, it wasn't just my day-to-day wasn't just song. So there's a lot there. There's so much to unpack. And, joking-wise, I'd always describe it as people would say, tell us about your day an average day. I always said, well, you could divide it into thirds. A third, I have no idea what everyone's talking about. A third, I'm trying to, I know what they're talking about, but I'm unhappy that we're talking about it.
Yeah.
And a third, I'm ecstatic we're talking about it. You know what I mean? The first third, I just had to work out which bucket that fell in. The stuff that I thought was we could do better and we should, streamline and get rid of. You know what I mean? Or does it fall in that this is incredible, inspiring, and the opportunities that are in front of us and the skill sets and capabilities. Never seen that before.
Yeah. I want to come back to that in a little bit, but you said something a moment ago that I think is really worth unpacking a little bit. You talked about the sheer scale made it hard to ensure that everybody was on the same page, that everybody knew how what they did contributed to. What'd you learn about how to instill more, even if it remains imperfect, how to instill more of that, how to ensure more people understand their role and contribution to the whole?
There's many parts to that. Clarity is obviously one of the most important things, and a mission that's believable and transferable, but also a mission and a structure that allows people to see how they fit into it or see how they can contribute from whatever position they are in. Whether you're an analyst or you're a very senior MD, whether you speak Russian or you speak Portuguese or you speak English or whatever, they could see that the direction of travel is of interest to them personally in their careers. They can translate that what I'm saying, my leadership team is saying. So when they're sitting opposite their clients or when they're sitting opposite their teams, that translates as well and makes sense. It's not fortune cookies or just, word salads.
Yeah.
But the main thing that unites people beyond everything, beyond the hardships, beyond the competition, beyond as I said, the headwinds and is it a believable mission? Now, it might be hard, and I've always subscribed to hard missions if they're believable, but is it something that they believe? And if they believe it, then they want to be part of it. And also, do the leaders that we put in place, are they up for it as much as everyone else? Are their expectations? And I've always thought that, and that's one thing that even when I was just running my own company, I was such a big believer that you don't want to just have your stars over here and everyone else is in the salt mine over here. Everybody at every stage. Doesn't mean that there aren't really hard, difficult things to be done. But at any stage, everyone should feel that they can contribute at some point of view. Now, you still get judged on the merit in your output and all those sort of things, but everyone should feel they have a chance to contribute. So as I said, at that level, and also it wasn't just status quo that I stepped into. Again, with a lot of great people and with the blessing of Julie and the Exco as well, they allowed me to change the name was the easy part, change the entire operating model. Well, you think about in the beginning when I stepped in, we had 9 different silos. Again, I don't want to make it sound like I inherited something bad. It was fantastic momentum, some great people, but it was designed for a different era and at not the speed that we had to move at and what our clients are demanding, and also with what's going on in the world with AI and technology. So they had 9 different capabilities that on paper made sense but didn't integrate. So I streamlined that down to 4. Had to work out how to embed creativity throughout that at a broader level, how to make it, to make sure that data and AI are genuinely infused in that, because we have to lead in that, and we thankfully. And then there was 40 different acquisitions that I had to try and sift through and work out what place they have, and from a leadership perspective to a capability perspective. So we had to do that. And I sort of probably rotated, I'm not saying this is always the way, but in my leadership team, my op model, probably 85% of the leaders new. And that doesn't mean new just from outside. There was some exceptional talent that I brought in, or that I brought up from Interactive, or stole from other parts of Accenture. And Diddy's a great example, had fantastic meetings with her, and I thought she should be a part of Song. Yeah. So I sort of put experts in more than generalists. And
What's that say about your philosophy? Are you a believer in more specialization than generalization?
I think it depends on what the role is, but I think if you're going to be world-class and leading in design, then someone has to be someone who is a product design person. If you are going to be world-class and leading in data or AI, you have to have someone that understands it. Now, around me, I still had some fabulous and fantastic generalists and operators. Need that, 100%. But to lead practices and people with skill sets and that that's a difference maker for us, I'll always pick someone who is a product person or skilled in that discipline.
You said two things that I'm wondering if you can offer some advice to everybody in our audience, but maybe in particular the CEOs, right? Because there aren't a lot of companies with the scale of even your slice, a huge slice of this enormous enterprise. But when you talked about kind of going from, I think it was 9 silos to 4 integrated areas of operation. One of my observations over the last few years is that org design is nothing gets more in the way of growth and value creation than org design.
Sure.
Right? What advice, what tips do you have on how to think about how to ensure integration, which kind of ties back to everybody knowing what the fuck they're doing and being on the same page, but from a systems perspective?
Okay, I designed around what makes sense to the client and what we offer, not to what makes sense internally first. My job isn't to placate and make people feel comfortable, because it was how do we show up and operate in the real world? And if we're going to be the world's leader in, customer, what are our clients buying? What do they need from us? Design our 4 practices around the entire journey of the customer. That's it.
It's simple and N of 1, it's right. What gets in the way of simplicity? Because there's so much, again, as an observer, across enterprise, there's so much unnecessary complexity.
There is unnecessary complexity because it's almost like a tax of growth. Sometimes things just get bigger and bigger, and it's harder to unwind this, and muscle memory is a very, 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 very big barrier in organizations.
Yeah.
People have a fondness for muscle memory, thinking it's nostalgic and all that sort of stuff.
It's the status quo.
Yeah, but it's like, well, this is what we've done in the past. Fine, if the world hasn't changed in 50 years, you don't need to change. You just need to do a better job of the current existing, template. But the world is changing every day. Every single client that's coming to us is wide-eyed, nervous, and excited about the changes that they're facing and the speed at which the world.
I'm guessing some of them are not wide-eyed. I think some.
Well, the wide-eyed may be terror, or it may be enthusiastic. So we can't be the world's leaders in helping our clients navigate the future if we don't understand the future. If we can't be honest with us, there's, as Nick says, which is a great thing in our principles, Nick Law, first, before you offer advice to other people about how to design themselves, first redesign yourself. And also part of it was, I didn't want to change things for the sake of it. As I said, I didn't come in thinking, hanging the banner under new management. I looked at it through we can do things that no one else can do. Our clients' business models have changed, or the barriers that they've got and the opportunities have changed. The whole media landscape's going away. The AI is, it's changing everything as well. Like, we've got to show up in a way, and it was like inheriting a spectacular hand that I just had to put in the right order.
Mm-hmm.
And that, because as I said, the capabilities, which is again going back to why did I sell to Accenture in the first place? The way they carry themselves in the boardroom, their influence in the boardroom, their capabilities and real understanding of technology.
And you're talking about the client's boardroom there, right? Or
Yes. Yeah. Because now they've always been much more about being the world leaders in the back office, behind the firewall. And Song customer, we were all about the front of the firewall, and particularly AI, right? If anything, it's the technology that is all about front office, all about in the customer's hands.
I've read a bit about why you chose Accenture, and I'm kind of wondering, I never even thought about it till this moment. What did Julie see that had her interested in acquiring you?
I can't speak for her, but from conversations we'd had, Interactive had great momentum. They saw that we're a very well-run business that had influence as a creative business. And I think she saw that writing on the wall that a lot of clients were asking for, one of the pieces of the jigsaw that they didn't have, as I said, because they had all these other components. So they had most chairs around the C-suite, but they didn't really have, this what's now song type of CMOs and chief growth officers and all those sort of ones. And now that's CEOs as well. And I think she thought that we were a crown jewel in that world of marketing and advertising. And it's funny. I mean, one thing that's, for all the things that were said about Droga 5 in the press and all the awards and all the accolades that we've had, one of the things that actually, and there's no celebration for this, but mattered and maybe proudest, was when they did due diligence on Droga 5. And now, as I said, having been on the other side of that, where we bought like 15 companies under, when I was CEO at the Song, and I've seen the due diligence, I've seen it go well, I've seen it go where we've decided not to do it. The reports, it's so thorough. And I remember being told by the people who run all the V&A that Droga 5 is one of the best run companies I've ever seen. From a profitability, zero debt, retention, all that. Like that made me as a schmucky creative go with the helps of great other people.
But a very handsome one.
But no, that made me like, it was a little bit in my head. I was like, in your face, of course, of course we're run well as well. We weren't just a celebrated creative place. We had great margins, great retention, all that. That made me really happy as well, which I think for her, because sometimes I play the card a little bit, I have in the past where, sometimes when we stand up in front of general manager, the GMC or the ex-co, I'm almost like, well, I'm the creative. And she'd always go, you can't play that card. Even though you are the creative, you're creative through and through. She's like, you also understand business. You know what I mean? Which I do only because I figured what she doesn't know is I only understood business because I had to, because I wanted to protect creative.
Yeah.
The reason for it.
So I want to talk about creative and creativity. I can't believe it's taken us this long to get there. But what she was saying to you is really interesting to me, because a few years ago, a very storied, legendary marketer who I'm going to keep anonymous gave a speech in Cannes that was titled "Creativity in Service of Growth," and I kind of wondered, what the fuck else is it in service of? Like, at least here, right? And I'm wondering if you think that kind of the creatives in our broad ecosystem really understand that creativity is in service of the business in which your clients operate, in which one's clients operate. I don't want to just make it about you. And then I want to talk a bit about where you see the creative landscape in its current state and maybe its future state. And I got some questions.
Well, there's something in that, again, there's a lot to unpack in that one as well. I mean, I'll just put a pin in the Julie thing. What she also did say, which was, again, the thing that made me think, oh, she gets it. Not about me specifically, but it was about that she wanted someone like me. Well, she said, we need someone who is, I don't just need another great operator.
Yeah.
I need someone who has vision and ambition. Do you know what I mean? And that's why I think that segues into the creative thing. Like, a lot of creative people have a lot of ambition, a lot of humanity, a lot of unreasonable belief in getting things done. But at the same time, the flip of that coin to your other question is, do you think most creatives understands that it's tethered to business and growth? No, I don't. And that's not that they're not capable of it. Yeah. I don't think they've ever asked to think about that. And that's I think that's the structure of what the industry has asked of them and how they're just celebrated. Most aren't celebrated to be creative leaders. I mean, to be business leaders.
Yeah.
And most of them weren't given the opportunity. And that was, I've always said this, when I took this role, no matter how hard it was, I also didn't want to screw it up, because I didn't want to be this creative poster child of, he was given the biggest opportunity as a creative, and he proved all the naysayers wrong that a creative can't run a business.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think that the best creative leaders out there, not every creative person, some of them should be kept in rooms just drawing and ideating, but a lot of creative leaders are big thinkers, expansive thinkers, given the opportunity to be business thinkers and to explain, to understand that, that it's about growth, it's about relevance, it's about accountability, all these incredible things. I think they're fantastic. I think it's the era where the more creative should be these leaders. I don't think we need operational. That's important in this climate. That's not going to be the difference.
So talk about this climate. What's going to be the difference?
This climate, okay, again, because we're moving it. We're zigzagging. It's not a linear straight line. I think a lot of industries and corporations have banked on certainty of certain stuff, forecast and certainty, and if we've seen anything, the disruption of what's happening with AI and politics and everything, right? Everything is nothing.
Certainty is a pipe dream.
Yeah, certainty doesn't exist.
Yeah,
and I think that one thing that I think is very good about creative thinkers is they're able to pivot, iterate, improvise, change. They're used to sort of actually, fractured thinking more than linear thinking. I think that's why creative leaders are really necessary. Now, there needs to be this responsibility in the girth of, as I said, of understanding business and operations around that, but you can always bring that in. You've also got to be able to think around problems.
Yeah.
You've also got to, as I said, improvise to that point, or pivot, or have a belief in lateral leaps and ways to do things. Because everything is up for grabs now. And particularly, even this is a segue into AI, AI is eviscerating and taking over most tasks, and most jobs will disappear, right?
Will you stick a pin in that? Because I want to spend,
Okay, we'll come back.
spend some time on that, but I want to ask you a really tactical question
Sure.
first that I think will lead.
Yep.
So I think it was Ad Age did a great piece. I think he basically wrote it, 37 pieces of work that you loved over your 37 years. It was okay. It was an okay portfolio.
Thank you. Sorry.
Yeah.
I was actually annoyed it wasn't 50. I mean, I haven't been in it 50 years, but I was like, anyway, go on.
One was print. Of the 37 pieces you chose, one was a print and out-of-home execution. So I took the average runtime of the 36 pieces that were left, and it was 2 minutes, basically 2.5 minutes. Average runtime for those 36 pieces, a few of which were quite a bit longer. Yeah. And I'm wondering what it says about the time it takes to tell a story that you love, and the time it takes to sell a story to human beings that really lands, and what you think the implications of the AI world are on the time we have to tell stories.
Well, there's no question in all facets of life that our attention span has shrunk. And I say that out of concern. Look at my 12-year-old daughter, thinking, does she have the attention span to sit in a movie theater and watch a full film, or is she growing up wanting to just get to the good bit on an iPad?
I read the average adult checks their phone 344 times a day. I am not the average adult, and without exaggeration, probably 600 times.
And no matter how many times you check that, he's not going to call you.
A man can dream.
But I think there's, you look at what's going on now with, I was talking to my wife literally about this last night, that now that, they're commissioning series, I can't remember what the name of them were called, where they're 90-second episodes.
Yeah, it's the Quibi Part 2 that Lloyd Bronin.
Yeah, but it's actually starting to get some traction. Before in the day, Quibi didn't get that traction.
No, that's the Part 2 part, yeah.
But that tells you a lot about, as I said, it's horrendous, but we're also guilty of it as well. So, I can sit on my perch going, oh, what's going on? What happened to sitting down, reading a good book, or listening to a whole album, or, watching a full movie in its entirety? But then do I get caught up in Instagram Reels where I'm watching things, in 6-second, 10-second pieces of content? Now, I do, but I also think that I'm fortunate that I can bookend between both. I can sit for hours and read a book all day, or I can watch a reel. But I worry that the next gen is sort of not going to have the capability to flex there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
My 20-year-old daughter, she doesn't read books, she listens to them.
Yeah.
And when she listens to them, she's doing something else. And yeah.
So that's terrifying, but also but the other flip side of me is thinking, if she's actually retaining what's in the book,
That's right.
and she's actually able to multitask, I'm like, maybe we are the 1.0 model and she's the 2.0 model, or whatever the version is, where, you know, where they're a better human being than I am. One of the things, and I don't know why I was never intimidated by new formats and new times and all that. I was never, even though of course I loved telling 60-second, 90-second commercials, but I was as excited during, you know, the start of the digital age, where it was about building experiences and websites, and that was as exciting for me as, I had no nostalgia for like, oh, I loved it back. I have never sat around saying, I remember the good old days, it was billboards, 6 words on a headline, or the good old days was any canvas to me is a canvas. So any chance to create something that makes a connection or fulfills the brief of the client to build this thing, that's all I cared about. So I've always been, and maybe that was I don't know why that happened. Maybe because I was the 5th son in a family where everything I got was inherited and was improvised. So I had to make light with whatever I inherited to turn that into something wonderful. But I've always been excited by technology and that. So if someone said to me from this day forth, you know, the only way to get through to X audiences is this experiential thing with 3-second things, and, you know, part of me would be like, wow, this is going to be difficult. But then I would embrace it, thinking, all right, I'm going to make that the best we possibly can. And I just think that I've always tried to ride the wave of opportunity more than sit on my board thinking, oh, I wish it was back like it was. Because I've said this before, like, success isn't nostalgic, we are. You know?
And I like that. I like that. Not that you've asked, because I will note you didn't. My favorite piece of work, I think it's one of my favorite pieces of work ever in the pantheon of work. And having said that, I'm probably going to screw Salvatore Mundi.
Oh, yeah. I love that. And that was long. That's long.
It's very fucking long. And I'm going to drop a link to it in the show notes. It's just, to me, first of all, it's stunning. Second of all, if you don't cry or tear up, you should go see someone. But what I love so much about it, to me, it's the epitome of what we try and do, which is to make people feel something. And you made people feel something by showing people feeling something.
Yeah.
You never showed. Did you show the work? We never showed the work. It was all close-ups. That one woman, the first woman.
Oh my God. But the thing is, for me, like, I love that piece very much, because I love art. So it was a love letter to art as much as it was to, and also we were improvising in the sense that the potential of the painting that ended up selling was never going to be as great as the thing. And also, as I said, it was, I mean, the cleverness of what we did was to give it the title, The Last Da Vinci. So that sort of gave the scarcity thing. But I've said from day one, from when I was 18 in this industry to now, I'm, all bullshit aside, I'm a very, very emotional person. And things that I've been involved in, or whether I created myself or I approved or pushed it, it's trying to unearth and capture the emotional connection between this opportunity and this consumer and connect them, and, you know, they find truth in that connection. And sometimes it can be irreverence and absurdity, and sometimes it can be beautiful. And that one, there's nothing more beautiful than real life. And that was a great example. Like, they were all real people, all real emotions. You know what I mean? Like, it was just one of the, and that obviously juxtaposed with that great track. So, you know, you try and amplify that thing, but we don't try and get in the way of it. I've never tried to get in the way of it. But I'm glad you loved that, because that's one of those under the radar ones that, but I love it. I do love it.
I remember seeing it when it was for the auction. I mean, I saw it in situ.
Yeah.
Perfect segue to now pull the pin out of AI,
Yeah.
and talk about how you think it might, you know, asking you to crystal ball, change creativity, storytelling, narrative? Will it make brands more or less important? What happens to emotional connection in a world where bots are marketing to bots?
Yeah. Well, okay, I'll get to the last one because that sort of is a bigger one where bots are talking to bots and you take the humanity out of it. But no matter what the technology is or the tool or how you can use it and what's created, the storytelling, there's still going to be a need for an emotional connection separate to the bots thing. And I think that AI already is, to be completely disruptive, which is what it already is, AI just has to be better than average. And it already is better than average, okay? As far as creating images, design, websites, writing scripts, it's better than average. So it's already taken that out of, and if I haven't said this to you before, you know, one of my things I've said, which I believe is, you know, everyone that's up in arms that it's going to replace the copywriters and the filmmakers and all that sort of stuff. I'm like, it's not going to replace everybody. It's going to replace that average middle, right? And because the averageness of architecture, advertising, music, journalism, pick a thing, it's written by something far more pervasive than artificial intelligence. It's written by research and compromise, right? That's what. So it's not like we need to protect the average shit that's out there. Now,
The contrary.
yeah. But then what we have to do is understand that what we do, where humanity is the very best of us and people, is how we take these tools that are unlike anything that's ever happened before, because they're not blunt tools. As I said, they can think and they can create and they can, you know, reference and all that sort of stuff. But how we use them and everyone's averages are going to come up to much, much better. So the baseline, there'll be no such thing as just terrible anymore, because everything base will be raised to best practices. But once every best practice is good, then everything becomes bland again. So it's like it moves up. It's like Tetris. Do you know what I mean? It gets like that and it goes down like that. So the base is going to get, and then what people do with these tools is going to, because yes, you can make the F1 movie for probably cost $300 million. You can probably make that for $50 million now. You know what I mean? Or you can, but how the filmmakers and how the creators, what they do with it, because AI is basically designed to avoid error, isn't it? That's what it is. It's designed to, they don't want bugs in it. They want everything to be perfect.
It's intended to. I don't know that it's yet designed.
Yeah, but it's intended. But the worst thing that can happen in an AI algorithm or whatever code is that there's errors and inconsistencies for obvious reasons. We don't want that, right? We don't want rogue. But almost every great leap in innovation, creative music, is embracing error, isn't it? Isn't that sort of personal context, misinterpretation, reinterpretation? These are sort of the pillars and the icebreakers of great storytelling, great writers, great poets, great musicians, great architects. You know what I mean?
So you remind me of a conversation I was having. I was head of strategy. I was talking to our chief creative officer when I was at Endeavor.
Yeah.
When you and I were colleagues once removed.
Yes.
I said, "Oh, I'm sorry, I missed it." He said something, I answered, and then I realized, oh, I misinterpreted what he said. He's like, no, keep going, because the misinterpretation may get us to the right answer. In a machine world, right? Like, I've been in the machine world for a long time, but like, I'm almost wondering, you talked earlier about embedding creativity. How do you embed, can you systematize misinterpretation, which is really...
Well, people will try and do that, of course, because people are like, oh, I get it. What you're saying is we should throw in a curveball every blah, 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 and there'll be that, and maybe that'll be one thing that does happen. People will be like, I mean, I always joke, it's a weird reference to make. I always had this running joke that, you know, all those dating sites like Match.com, I don't even know if they're still around or whatever, those dating sites, they're all just, I assume, never been on one, honestly, but it's like,
Sure, David.
Don't tell. No, but they remind me of AI, right? They're all designed so people put in their wants and needs and all their perfect partner, what it should be, and you're right, probably 80% of the time, or maybe 50% of the time, I don't know, all the things that they think they want and all the perfect algorithms match people up, and it doesn't work. Just because. I always thought that they should have a counter site to that called nemesis.com, which is you get matched with someone that you shouldn't be with. And it turns out that probably some great relationships come out of that, because it's like not what you want and not what you think. It's not linear. Like, I think life isn't precise. We need certainty and things to be linear and predictable for us to feel comfortable. But so many great things that happen in the world are not. And as long as we can keep the flame alive of that in business. So yes, there's going to be massive disruption and most jobs are going to go away and most jobs are going to change, but there'll be new jobs that emerge and new ways to tell these stories and create these connections. And, I think that's normal. And now we just have to get used to moving at a different pace. And everyone's very nervous now because we don't have time to wean our way into this change. And I do worry that kids are not going to be able to learn to write, or kids are not going to be able to understand this, or attention spans and stuff. But then I'm sure our parents said about us, oh my God, our kids don't know how to research anything anymore. We used to go to the library and have to take out books and highlight them now. Now they've got this thing called Google that you go and it just delivers it. There's always that sort of innovation. And then from that comes, so there'll be people who work out what that new version of it is. Because at the moment, we're still very much caught up in it's doing what we're familiar with faster and cheaper.
Absolutely love what you said, which is to be completely disruptive, you just need to be better than average. That will be quoted a lot. Without attribution, by the way, I'll probably just take credit for it.
Go for it.
How can 100 times more work when marketing is already ubiquitous and ignored and avoided, and we pay to avoid it? How could 100 times more work be a good thing?
We can get 100 times better output. And you can think about that in the context of medical research. There is no question, and we started saying it was vaccines, but with all AI will be the thing that helps cure cancer.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? AI will be the thing that helps us discover new frontiers and does these things that we couldn't do. AI will probably help us solve climate change. So it doesn't mean that we suddenly have to sit in the lab for 100 times and but it will create things that are more focused now that's fantastic for certain verticals. But as I said, if we're in the spirit of creativity and everything, that's different.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I was working with ChatGPT on something. I downloaded a document I'd written and was asking for some thoughts around it, and it couldn't reference it. And I was losing my mind at a certain point. And I was like, what you're telling me is you can beat a grandmaster in chess at chess, but you cannot reference this document that's like 2 chats back, right? If AI, and I think you're right, of course, AI is going to help us solve cancer and help us solve climate change. Putting aside, of course, that climate change is just a hoax. It's not even real. For AI to help us solve, there's a fill in the blank coming, for AI to help marketers and enterprises solve for the commoditization of marketing and the products and services they represent, it has to do what?
It still has to work out that the output hasn't changed. Is how do you add value to a customer's life? Like that's it. The golden rule. Yep. Are you making their life easier, better, more informed, educated? Like is whatever role you play in their lives, is it helping their lives?
Bots marketing to bots and the efficacy of brands and emotion. What's your thinking around all that?
Well, that is going to happen. Do you know what I mean? And as I said, that terrifies me a little bit. And then when I get lazy, I think, that'll be such an easy thing when my bot is taking care of my DMV license renewal and it's arguing with, my bank about the, whatever. So there's part of
about your overdrafts or
whatever it is. Yeah. But so there's part of me that's like, and again,
by the way, we will start a GoFundMe for you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate that very much. I need it. But but again, with everything, I think the bots will take on, again, this is just my opinion. I don't want to sound like I'm a complete authority on this. Will take on the personality and needs that you have.
Yeah.
So they will have a proxy personality.
Yeah.
And then the market is going to have to get to know your proxy personality. You know what I mean? Because not everything's going to be, this bot's going to be like, I want this at $25 and I want this done at this speed. There's going to be emotional decisions in that bot as well. Do you know what I mean? And I think that the bot, if it is smart as they should be and as one-sided on your side, it will take on characteristics that it knows pleases its prompter and you're not a robot yourself, so it'll take it. So I just think there will still be hues of humanity. It sounds weird to be in there. Now, for very functional, dry things, knock yourself out. Haggle, haggle, haggle. Sort this out, collate this, da da da. But marketers are going to have to work out. Okay, if we're all brands have the same ability to create bots with the same technology and the same speed of that, what differentiates us from that bot? So everything still comes down to going back to the averages. When everything's best practices, nothing is. What is going to be the difference? And then they'll probably be like, oh, we're going to go retro and we're going to have like this thing called a human being. A bag of flesh-covered chemicals is going to interact with you once in a blue moon. Look at the rebound or the ricochet between, we all have the technology now to never leave our homes or to order everything in now or not go in the office all the time and all these, and that's not just a COVID thing, that's a tech thing, that's a behavior change thing. Has there ever been more demand for collective group experiences than there ever has been now? Experiential community concept. Like, again, we ricochet. There's an innate thing in us that has yet to be suppressed. Now, the desire to have things easier and our lazy bone to make things that's there as well. And we spend 10 hours a day working to live. Of course, in humanity, people used to have to walk 20 miles to get water. So, we're designing technology to always take the work out of things. That's never changed. It's happening now, just at a faster pace. To hopefully give us more time to spend the time doing things we want to be doing.
I don't need to go off on that tangent. Let me ask you a question. You talked about it earlier, and you've talked about it in some of the since your announcement articles I've read, and you talk about doing work only song can do. And what is that, and why is that? Like, what is somebody else truly not capable of that song can do, and what's that competitive advantage?
It's the sort of unification or the integration of what we do. As I was saying before about how I designed the model, so it's more seamless because, humans don't think about things as in this is that moment, this is the commerce moment, this is the marketing moment, this is the transactional moment, this is the...
I had AC Eggleston-Bracey, who's the Chief Growth and Marketing Officer at Unilever, on the show, and she said something I just absolutely love, which is consumers don't live in the funnel, they live in the moment.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. Like, they're not thinking that, right? But what we can do is, I'm excited by, as I said, creating whatever's the appropriate and right model or output for our clients, whether it be a brief fireworks show or it's something that stands the test of time like a lighthouse. We can do the creative, we can do the design, we can do the strategy, we can do the builds, we can do the sustain, we can do the running the models. We can road test the business model. Like, I want to be able to, sometimes some of my favorite things that we're working on have done. I look at it and sometimes as a sort of a parlor trick, I say to people, I'm like, so tell me what this is. Is this a marketing idea? Is this a commerce idea? Is this a design idea? Is this a sustainability idea? Is this a new business growth idea? I'm like, if you can't answer that question, but it's all of them, that's the right idea. Not every client needs that, but there are times that's where the things that I'm...
So I would have answered that, putting aside the question is about an idea that I don't have. I would have said the answer to that question always has to be it's a commercial idea, which makes it a business idea, right? And that everything else then is, okay, what is in service of commerce?
Yeah, no, I agree. As I said, so I don't try and break it down into those labels.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Right.
It's answering the challenge.
Yeah.
And it delivers it on behalf of the client and the customer. And that, I think that's great. Now, with the levers we have are all those different things and more.
Do you think AI and the continued evolution of it will mitigate some of those competitive advantages?
I think it'll help us do all of that. But going back to the point, I think there's still going to have to be people making decisions that's maybe not as many people that elevate that and road test that and understand whether it's right and relevant and, all those attributes.
I was listening to Lenny Rachitsky's podcast a few weeks ago, and I can't remember the name of the guest, which is a shame because it's the guest I'm going to quote, who kind of queried whether or not every job was going to become a prompt job. And by reference, he said, does the CEO's job become some version of a prompt that's like, here's the business we're in, optimize for shareholder value, stakeholder value, a margin of X, and,
Employee is now. Every CEO is a prompter. If you're a real CEO, that's what you are doing right now.
But you don't have somebody who can give you the answer back singularly and in 2 seconds.
No. Again, but as I said, but the starting point is that the best leaders are prompters. They just had their tools were slower before. If I asked to okay, we're going to redesign this model, or I'd like us to go after this person, or I need to have intel about what's the size of this market opportunity here, or thing. These are prompts that I'm putting into the system. So it's the process is the starting point is the same, but the sort of the execution of it is very different. And I think great CEOs have to be great prompters. Isn't that the way? When you're creating anything, it's your starting point, your intention, and your
clarity of objective and intention. Yeah, right.
Which is your mission, your objectives, your ambition, your lateralness, your tenacity and outrageousness, and whatever. They're all those starting points. You know what I mean?
You're well on the record of saying, the industry is under a lot of pressure, right? I think we can all agree to that.
I think the agency model is broken. Let me just ignore specific. Not the talent that resides within it, but the model is broken.
What if you could offer a from this broken model to what will better serve clients?
A much more holistic point of view, where you're not trying to sell something that's already stocked up in the cupboard. You're selling solutions. You're not selling just capabilities. You know what I mean? And if you're really agnostic to that, then, as I said, you're not trying to. It's not based on we'll just say and do whatever you want in pursuit of your media dollars,
right?
And we'll give away this bit for that bit. And most of the holding companies, that's what they've done. They've gutted out the industry. The essence of any, particularly in the business I've come through, is the ideas and the skill sets, and the thinking and the idea people, the solutions, and that's been given away in pursuit of media.
Yeah.
And also now clients don't value that part of it because they've been given it. So they're
part and parcel of why we see so little differentiation, so much average work. I mean, it's the most
when media. By the way, let's be honest. The media industry as it is now is going to be away. It'll disappear. Okay, there'll be some wonderful, very smart company will create an algorithm that's much more transparent, much more effective, gives much more control to the clients.
Yep.
And they'll be like, why am I paying X here? Put it in a black box. Don't really know the outcomes. You know what I mean? Why would you do that?
Well, actually, what's your answer to that question? Because a lot of these people are doing that. Why are they doing it?
Because they haven't got it's a relationship built, or there's jazz hands going on, or there isn't a clear declarative version yet that's there. But the second it comes, it'll be seismic. It won't be gradual. It'll just be like a record scratcher.
Yeah. It can't come soon enough from my perspective. But
and I don't say that with glee, wishing for the demise of the media companies and the whole.
Of course,
at all.
It's
not at all
reality.
I'm just saying, but what the biggest issue that faces is a CEO. I'll say this is one thing, which is all businesses in any industry, is the toggling between quarterly earnings and the future state of growth and where you're going to go. That is the biggest rub.
The long and the short of it, as it were.
Completely.
Yeah.
Earnings are crucial, and they are sort of like a temperature check of the company, and you're held hostage by that because everyone wants to hit their numbers, and everyone wants to chase growth, but be innovative. But they're almost in not opposition of each other, but sometimes some of it can be a little bit of a push and pull. Because earnings are proof of discipline and your ability to operate a company. And growth is proof of your ambition and your ability to innovate. So you can have great earnings but have no future. You just spend your time focusing on the growth opportunities and you miss the day-to-day, then you don't get that time, because earnings are really they're the fuel for growth. So that's one of, going back to your very first question, what's the hardest part of probably, I found being CEO of the scale, is really managing and not being held hostage by either, but being honorable and respectful to both opportunities. Not being blinded by the quarterly and earnings, but really understand the necessity of that and being, but maybe that's, as a creative person, going back to the why more creatives always have their eye on what could be and should be and the growth thing. So I always have had one foot in, even when I was doing Drugga Fiber, for whatever success we had at that time, I was always more curious and inspired by what might be next and where we could go, because you know what I mean? So that was one of the biggest challenges, I think.
I think it's I think the biggest challenge facing global businesses and businesses globally. And that relentless focus on today is getting in the way of tomorrow and next week.
And there's so many examples, and there's going to be more and more now, where successful companies grew into irrelevance.
I'm giving a speech on it in 2 weeks on exactly that.
Yeah.
They grow into irrelevance through commoditization and by not seeing where the world could.
Well, not seeing the world. I mean, you think of, I won't even name companies, but how many companies did when the iPhone came out? It's maybe a long-winded or a road tried and tested analogy, but like, how many companies did the iPhone take out in one launch? Different industries that were doing exceptionally well, and all their shareholders were probably happy. And those companies didn't think possibly that thing could do that, and just wiped out.
Including Intel, when they decided not to be the chip that fueled it. And the far more lay example or pedestrian example rather that I use is like, Flickr could have been YouTube.
Oh, it should have been. I mean, it's crazy. I mean, the good thing is Intel's going to, it make its way back. But you've got you think there was the movie camera, the film cameras, the Garmins of the world. Just all these things. You're like, what? But it's
that old line about the railroad barons at the turn of the 20th century in America who thought they were in the railroad business, not the transportation business. And you're remembering not just it's the job to be done, and what you make versus what you sell and all that. Speaking of sell, lots of pieces on your brilliant work. Any one or two pieces that you look like, I can't believe I didn't sell that. I can't believe that idea didn't come to life. It was a game changer.
Gosh, there's probably so many of those. Any that I can... There's definitely some that, you at the time, they would have been such proof points of just what I think we can do, and there's some I'm still pushing for. So I'm so relentless that even when something is not going to happen, I still don't believe it's not going to happen. I'll either try and do something, make sure we do something better. But
I pitched ideas when I was on the agency side that I'm still pitching to those same companies because I was like, this is a game changer for you. Yeah. I got no vested interest except it's a game changer.
There's some ideas that I probably pitched 10 years ago that were not probably right, but it's more appropriate now because also the technology is able to do it. Like, I even go back to, this is crazy. Before I started Drugga Fiber, in the period between being publicist, CCO, global CCO, and starting Drugga Fiber, I started a startup called Honey Shed. You probably don't remember.
That's actually, I do remember it because that's when I met you. You came into CAA, and we were talking about Honey Shed, and I remember it very well.
Now, it failed for so many reasons, but the actual idea, which was just have people who are experts in something, sneakerheads or girls who like, different shaped butts, or selling jeans, or gamers talk about it. It was basically what influencers are today.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Now,
it was, if I remember, it was kind of pitched as MTV meets QVC.
And actually, when I look at...
By the way, thanks for remembering that we met. That doesn't hurt at all.
Actually, no, sorry, I was in a flow. But now it failed because we filmed content in a studio in LA. So what people can do on an iPhone now for $10, it was 30 grand. Yeah. We also had built a site that was clunky because we weren't ready, but way too soon, way too expensive execution. But the fundamental idea in my head, that's one that I've thought, if I just tried to do that 5 years later, we would be doing this interview from a 500-foot yacht in the Mediterranean now.
Wouldn't have been mine, however, which really pisses me off.
Yeah, that's you would have been on. Yeah, I wouldn't let you on the yacht. I would just have you in a dinghy on the side.
I'm all right with that.
But no, so that's one of the things.
So I am getting the sense
more than anything, but it was one of those things. So because the logic in that time was, people, if it's relevant to them, people won't care that they know they're being sold ads.
That is everything. We don't mind being seduced, but we don't like being sold irrelevant. What's irrelevant?
You waste my time with something I don't need, or you patronize me, or you treat me like an idiot, or it's not of value to me, well, you're wasting my time. If you talk to me in a way that is relevant, compelling, necessary, timely, you got my attention.
Timely is everything.
And also, don't do it in a way that's patronizing. But so that's the thing, there's definitely things that I've never been shy of trying to explore new things and try things. But the basic need hasn't, maybe it's changed clothing or aged or whatever, but the sort of who I am and how
You're ageless, dude. You look fantastic, I wish.
But how I think hasn't changed, actually, to be honest. From the schmucky guy who was as a copywriter at 18 to starting to, all that.
Okay, well then, is there some codification to how you think? Like how you think hasn't changed? Like, do you have kind of, and I'm asking you to make the, well-worn implicit, explicit, and that's hard, but do you have like, to get from here to what matters, to get from the question to the answer based on the way you look at the world, what are the first couple of steps?
Start at the end. What I mean by that is, whatever you're creating, this is crude, think about why the person on the receiving end or people on the receiving end should give a shit about this and why they would give a shit about it. And however that manifests itself, then you can go back to that. But if you start at the end, like why and how, then you'll probably get there in a more interesting way.
I've stolen a line from you that I've used repeatedly, that's the give a shit. When I was at Endeavor, you were at Endeavor, and it rebranded from WMEIMG to go back to Endeavor. You were on stage with Ari and Patrick at the time. And I don't remember if you used a Venn diagram or if I've just adapted it to one now, but you're like, it all comes down to, why am I going to give a shit about this? And I was like, it is such a simple articulation of what we're doing.
Well, it actually goes back to the very first thing you asked me, is like, how I think about things, which is that care thing. That's a sweeter way of saying the give a shit thing. But as I said, it's not lost on me. Again, being in the business that I've been in my entire career, even though it's morphed and the scale has changed and the sort of the levels have increased, I've never taken for granted that we are paid to create something that is trying to connect with people or a person. And I always thought creativity and thinking and respect and all that was the greatest tools to do that. I never made any assumptions, and I always found it quite incredible. And as I said, as I've grown up and the world has opened up to me, I've only been grateful for the sort of the ways we can do it.
So you're not walking out the doors here, but you are keeping this very nice office, but you're stepping away from the operational. As you think about the many things you do next, where will you find a source of productive intimidation? Are you looking for it again? Or
Definitely. I mean, I'm not, even though I'm stepping out of this role and sort of as a semi-retirement, but I'm very happy about this vice chair role because it allows me to contribute in different ways. I'm not jokes aside, sit on a boat or sit on a beach and just, type of person. I love taking moments of holidays and spend time with my family and stuff. But I'm a thinker and I'm a builder. And So I will definitely find ways to utilize that. And that will be, I've made investments in other companies. I'm advising other people, for as long as I'm in this role, I'm going to sort of hopefully do what I can do to mentor and sort of make sure that, I contribute. But yeah, I'm definitely always going to be wanting to build and help, and it'll be creatively based. It won't be marketing, and it won't be, I've achieved everything I wanted to do in that world. Doesn't mean everything to achieve, but yeah, that's why I'm excited for the future, to take some time and all that sort of stuff.
So I get the sense Drogha 2 is not likely to happen.
No, I mean,
And by Drogha 2, I mean you and me.
yeah, no, exactly. Well, look, I'm not sure if I'd ever work for anybody else again.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I know you're not planning to work for anyone else again. But if you had to run a company, is there any company out there that you would?
In a pipe dream type of thing. Like if there's only one job that I would take, CEO Disney, that I would do.
Why?
Because it's the biggest storytelling creative company in the world. The most important.
Mm-hmm.
The world needs them more now than they've ever needed them.
Why?
Because they bring meaning and joy and value to people's lives. And that they do it at a scale that no one else has.
And the world needs meaning and joy and value more than it ever has.
Completely. But I've said that before. I think I've said that for 30 years. They were always, my favorite company. So, but I think something like that, particularly because I get nervous with them, with what's, not just them, but, with what AI is doing for,
I was going to ask, yeah.
It's going to devour a lot of companies. And, we'll see what happens.
Well, I thought about bringing spirits with me, but I didn't. Because, by the way, the Whole Foods in Hudson Yards doesn't sell wine. I looked. And there are no liquor stores around here. I really did think about it. But
it's the thought that counts. And it's also cheaper.
I even looked for Foster's beer. I was going to bring you, something Australian.
For the record, no Australians drink Foster's beer.
Oh, I thought you were Kiwi. Just kidding. I'm kidding.
Erase everything.
I kind of lost my train of thought, but yeah, it's it. Spirits. I raise a proverbial glass to you, to next, and to the stories you'll keep telling.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. I've enjoyed it. I enjoy our conversations.
Likewise. And were you going to say something else nice about me?
I think, I will though. Actually, now that you've asked me to, I will. Now that you've twisted look, I get interviewed a lot. Do you know what I mean? And, a lot of times questions are quite formulaic. I really appreciate the fact you asked meaningful questions, and also you have an interest in trying to find and trying to mine out of the stuff what I mean. Right. Because a lot of times people don't do that.
I appreciate that. And to our audience, we appreciate you. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Still kind of is weird to me that people watch podcasts, but whatever, who am I to judge, that is. Give us those 5 stars, if only for David as a goodbye present. Don't forget to contribute to the GoFundMe, just kidding. And if you're inclined to leave a review, please do, because that's how people find the show. See you next time.